An NTV investigation has illuminated the damage wrought by the encroachment of Kampala's green belt in the last decades. From the Centenary Park green spaces to the Chinawataka green wetlands, areas that store and absorb the water flow by trapping and slowly releasing surface water, rain, and floodwaters, have shrunk considerably. Satellite imagery by Annika McGuinness of InfoNile captures the scale of the encroachment on the Lubigi wetland. Large-scale infrastructural projects like the Northern Bypass have aggravated matters. Lubigi is hardly an outlier. Wetlands in Nachivubo and Chinawataka have been whittled down by encroachment occasioned by investors and human settlements. Today, Uganda continually pays a high price because of such encroachment. Flash floods continue to turn Kampala's thoroughfares into death traps. With the drastic effects of climate change, it will take a number of years and large sums of money to fix the city's potholes and red-rutted paths in the outskirts of Kampala metropolitan city. A 2020 research paper entitled The Cost of Congestion in Kampala by the International Growth Center shows that about $1.5 million or 5.6 billion shillings is lost each day as a result of traffic congestion. This means that $547.5 million or 2 trillion shillings is lost to traffic gridlocks in the capital each year. The other direct cost linked to wetland destruction is in regard to road maintenance in the city, which is amongst the highest in the world. For instance, the recently World Bank funded Lukuli Road, whose 7.71 kilometer stretch across Machindia division cost 70.5 billion shillings. That's an average cost of 9.1 billion per kilometer. Kulambiro Ring Road, Najera Link, and Nakawa Ntinda and Acacia Avenue reconstruction, measuring 9.77 kilometers in length, was built at a cost of 90.4 billion shillings, with each kilometer costing 9.3 billion shillings. Kabusu Bunamwaya Lueza, an 8-kilometer road, cost 93.7 billion shillings, or 11.6 billion shillings for each kilometer. Further, the ecologically destructive development model adopted in the city that comes at the expense of green spaces and vital ecosystems that serve as natural mechanisms of flood control, water filtration, and drainage have health consequences for city dwellers, such as increased vulnerability to waterborne diseases, especially in slums, where nearly 50% of Kampala residents reside. Since Kampala is the economic hub of the country, it has come in the eye of the storm of rural-urban migration. Its population has swelled from 1.18 million people in the year 2000 to 5 million in the year 2020. Dr. Arthur Bainomgisha, the Executive Director of Advocates Coalition for Development and Environmental Code, reveals the implications.
About 67% of Uganda's economy, GDP, is here in Kampala. And because most of the wealth is here, there has been a pull factor, people coming to enjoy the wealth that is here. And that has congested Kampala. It has caused the pressure for housing. And people have no housing. And so as people fill up the wetlands and build, they have tenants that fill up those houses because there is actually a deficit in terms of housing.
As the final frontier of global capitalism, Africa and its cities such as Kampala are witnessing rampant environmental degradation, particularly wetlands and green spaces. These fragile ecosystems are increasingly under threat. In the context of rural-urban migration, this poses an existential threat to the populace. In keeping with the government's commitment to a neoliberal policy approach that prioritizes development driven by private and largely foreign capital, land in the capital was acquired in a wetland to build Forest Mall. This followed similar developments such as Garden City, which encroaches on the Kitante wetland, the giving away of Chinawataka wetland to develop a car bond near Chambogo, and Crestform reclaiming a swamp to aid its expansion. John Ken Luchamuzi, a politician and environmental activist, reflects on the implications.
The Garden City area was supposed to be protected. It was supposed to be part of the urban environment protection area. But we are finishing it up by building shops and buildings.
Bukoto Health Center 3 serves communities from as far as Chiwatule and Chanja. It has continued to grapple with flooding this rainy season. Previously, the health center has lost drugs in the stores as a result of flooding. Ben Mwanje, the LC1 chairman of Butukira, told NTV the genesis of this persistent flooding problem.
Even now, when there is heavy downpour, our health center floods. It has flooded at least 4 times. The drugs in the store got damaged. This started when the wetland was developed.
Victor Nahabwe, a senior manager, environment enforcement and field operations at the National Environment Management Authority, or NEMA, explains the biggest threats to wetlands in the city.
The biggest threats are wetlands, mostly general wetland encroachment by mostly the rich, I can say, because the poor indeed, it's quite very expensive to construct in a wetland. You have to backfill, and a poor person might not manage to, for example, fill an acre of a wetland because of the costs involved. So it's associated, basically wetland encroachment is associated with the people who can afford, the rich. And so that's one of the challenges, because they don't develop those wetlands for their own homes, but they put big projects on those wetlands. So whereas we are mandated to monitor and regulate all those activities, these people can operate at any time, both during the day and night, whether weekend or public holidays or what. They are always on the lookout to see how they can beat the system.
Despite a 1998 amendment to Section 44 of the Land Act, stipulating that the government or a local government shall not lease or otherwise alienate any natural resource, including wetlands, land titles continue to be issued for property in wetlands. Per the Uganda Wetland Atlas Volume 1, each year 600 hectares or 1,483 acres of wetland are reclaimed in this manner. Since 1995, land titles have been issued for at least 782 plots, wholly or partially located in wetlands in central Uganda. This is according to a 2018 audit of the Wetland Management Department by the Office of the Auditor General. The audit partly attributed this to poor coordination between the Wetland Management Department and districts regarding dissemination of information on wetland boundaries, interference and pressure from powerful politicians or high-ranking government officials, and possible corruption of officials from the Uganda Land Commission, district land boards, and area land committees. However, Victor Nahabwe plays down the allegations of corruption.
We don't have really those cases. They are minimal, very minimal, because we have a professional team. So any compromise or any person intending to compromise the enforcement team, then he himself is equally liable to be charged, because, that is corruption, first of all, of the highest order.
His comments are in stark contrast to a recently released Inspectorate of Government report which estimates that the loss of environmental resources to corruption is an astronomical 2.28 trillion shillings per year. The same report puts the cost of environmental pollution and degradation at 536.8 billion shillings per year. On April 16, 2014, a cabinet paper recommended the cancellation of land titles in wetlands in a bid to address the problem of wetland degradation. It also directed that all titles in wetlands on public land acquired unlawfully after 1995 be cancelled by the Land Ministry. Enforcing these legal provisions has, however, proved complicated. Appearing before the Committee of Commissions, Statutory Authorities and State Enterprises, COSASE, in March 2023, KCCA's Director of Health Services and Environment, Daniel Okello, revealed that on the Nachivubo channel, the Cabinet Subcommittee chaired by the Prime Minister assessed and recommended cancellation of titles. There were a list of titles to be cancelled. Along the way, some of the affected people went to court and got injunctions. A March 2018 memo from NEMA to Dorothy Chisaka, the KCCA Executive Director, listed plots with titles for cancellation located in the wetland section of Bugolobi Bungalows. The list excludes UBC land because it was acquired before 1995, and plot 469 in Panga Close, which is exempted on account of a Court of Appeal ruling. Further titles for plots in Chitintale Zone 12 and plots adjacent to Kampala Industrial Park are listed for cancellation. This raises the concern of discriminatory enforcement in light of the inconsistent application of the law. For instance, in 2014, a perimeter wall was erected by Royal Palm Suites at Butabika in Chinawataka wetland, compromising the long-term ecological integrity of the wetland, which along with Nachivubo and Lubiji are the three most critical wetland ecosystems in the city. This happened 6 years after farmers in Chinawataka wetland were prevented from opening the wetland for cultivation and digging drainage channels.
As NEMA, we don't discriminate any person. We treat all other people, all people equally. We don't discriminate in enforcement. If you are encroaching on a wetland, then the law has to take its course.
Interventions by government agencies and civil society to restore degraded wetlands indicate the scale of the challenge. The 2018 audit revealed that countrywide 628.9 hectares, or 1,554 acres, were restored each year, yet 28,261 hectares, or 69,834.4 acres, are lost each year. Typically, this net loss of wetlands is attributed to re-encroachment on restored wetlands. Dennis Bugaya, the Buganda Land Board spokesperson, brings the implications into view.
When you look at the Lubiji wetland, from where it starts, that's around, I think, Namungona, around that area. It entirely falls on Kabaka's mile land title. That's block, the land title for block 203. Meaning that a wetland, which is a public good, is located on land which is owned primarily by a certain individual. So how do you balance the individual right of the owner and that of the public good, which is maintaining the environment?
Public green spaces continue to be threatened by the prevailing unplanned city sprawl. These spaces are sites for community and recreational activities such as sports, which is critical given the city's predominantly young population. Yet it is increasingly apparent that the value they contribute to make the city livable is underestimated by the authorities and city planners, with an insatiable appetite to build on any open space. The Uganda Vision 2040, a strategy to foster the development of Uganda, outlines efforts necessary to restore ecosystems such as wetlands. This is through the implementation of catchment-based systems, gazetting of vital wetlands for increased protection, and monitoring and inspecting restored ecosystems. However, it will take pragmatism rather than such lofty blueprints to save Kampala from being sank by ravaging floods.